Hi, buongiorno, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this conference on performance. My name is Guillaume Thibaux. I'm one of the co-founders of a company called Quanta. I spent, before co-founding this company, I spent the last 10 years, about 10 years, working on performance, mostly working in a hosting company. And when I was working in that field, I had the worst nights trying to find ways to better scale Magento architectures. And performance has always been a huge challenge, and with some difficulties in the way that it's compared to other subjects, performance is very transverse. It touches the development, the hosting part as well. And it has to be efficient to really work well on that subject. It needs to have all the teams work together. So it became, this subject of performance expertise became a company. So just a quick word about Quanta before we go into performance. So Quanta is a French startup. We built the company in 2012. We are at the point today that apparently it's better here. We are at the point today that the first version of our software was out in the first year, and after we've been like the last 2 years and a half, we've been growing, scaling, and now we are at the point we are plugged on more than 300 online stores. So it's very interesting for a performance geek like me to actually have access to so much data on the performance of so many Magentos because we see patterns and it's very interesting. So today, so that's the SaaS application. Today, I'm here to give you back some insights on what you can do to better work on this tough subject, but also in which you can have some quite a good success. The idea is today I'm going to help you think that we can win the fight on performance bottlenecks. We do all this, we do optimization for one huge reason, is that because speed is key. Speed is key for a merchant. It has some huge impact on many different engagement metrics, but I'll start with one quick case study of ours, which is the case of Etam. Because it's quite impressive. Etam is one of the biggest brands in France. They have a number of page views, or more than 200 million page views per year. And when we met Etam, their page load time was about 1.2 seconds. And while optimizing their website, they were able to shrink it down to 500 milliseconds. So when you think about it, okay, 700 milliseconds. What's 700 milliseconds? It's like quite fast for a human, but actually, if you multiply that 700 milliseconds by the number of page views that they have each year, actually, they saved each year 4 years and a half of their visitors waiting in front of a blank page. So as you can imagine, when you remove that painful waiting time for buyers, it changes everything. So after this optimization, they measured with their business metrics that they had an additional 28% of page views per session, 21% more time spent, so people are staying more, they are clicking more, and as you can imagine, they go more also at the end of the funnel, so they buy more. 20% of additional conversion rate. For a brand like Etam, we're talking millions of euros here. this effect of speed and how people react has been known forever by the big giants of the internet. Google first made the fastest search engine in the world, and have measured that for 500 milliseconds that they were gaining, that they were reducing, they had 20% of more revenues on ad banners. Amazon, probably you know this stat because this one is like it is really key to measure a bit the return on investment on optimization. Is that for every 100 milliseconds that they were saving, they had a 1% additional of revenue, and that for each 100 milliseconds. So that's an interesting interesting 100 milliseconds. And Yahoo, last but not least, optimized the front end 400 milliseconds, and they ended up having 9% of more interactivity, 9% more traffic. So you might think, okay, Google, Amazon, Yahoo, but what about me and my Magento store? So we measured that as well. These are 3 French brands that you might know, like Blancerie is a bit the equivalent of Pottery Barn in France. And Etam is like quite the equivalent of Victoria's Secret. They saved Blancerie 2 seconds, 1.2 seconds for tone design, and Etam 700 milliseconds. And that's what they measured in their analytics afterwards. So it's quite cool, I think, to see that you measure that on very different things. You're a search engine, it has an impact. You are any app on the internet, there is an impact, people react differently. And on e-commerce, it's just the same every time. Quite the same, to be really precise. As you can see, the ratio is not exactly the same. It's always going to depend on your field, how much competition you have in your field, in what you're selling. For Amazon, it's quite huge, but it really depends on your business, actually. But what's for sure, and that's true for any business, is that it's always a very positive thing. So speed has many other benefits. I'm not going to go into all of them. I will finish with the impact on SEO, because it's interesting how also not only you can convert better with your Magento store because you optimize every page, but you also are going to bring more people, because Google is doing a positive incentive on the faster websites. And they've been communicating on that subject quite a long ago, but it has never been like very, they're kind of secret on the formula. So it was measured externally, and if you are interested in that particular study, I would recommend how website speed actually impacts search ranking by Bill Hoffman. He measured 200 sites, more than 100,000 pages for 12 months. So it was quite a nice work. And the end result was saying that for among those 2,000 web stores, actually the ones that have been getting faster with time have been gaining some ranking in Google. And that's true for the 1 to 10 first pages. And apparently, after that, speed is not... so if you're at page number 12, probably you have to work more on the content before. So, where are we now? Back to Magento. At Quanta, as experts on performance, we always recommend for the merchants that we meet that they need to be around 100 milliseconds for each page on their site. That's like You can be a bit above or under, but 100 milliseconds is going to be a bit the sweet spot, which are going to be able to help you maximize conversion and Google ranking as well. And among the top 200 Magento stores, we have been doing a study on that, and we measured that actually, on average, the top 200 Magento stores, so we are talking big guys here, the average is actually more than 4 times that. So there is a lot to do. So the war is not over, but we are winning some battles. So why do we have this gap? Why merchants are not already right now at the target? Well, because it's been and it's more and more a complicated subject. It's a complicated subject because an e-commerce architecture has become, let's say it, a real mess. There is a huge number of technical layers connected to each other. And so I'm an IT guy, so maybe if you are like specialized in some of the fields that you see here, you might, let's say you have a brief overview from that point. I like to represent it with gears. So it's not like very technical, but you get the idea. Like, for example, if you think Magento is not like completely autonomous. Magento relies on PHP, and PHP relies on Apache, which is connected to Varnish because there might be a cache in front of it, and so on. And Varnish is running inside a Linux, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So everything is connected, and we have different teams taking care of each part. So huge number of layers, all connected to each other, all can impact performance. And we have one web team, so usually developers from solution partners. They are managing one part. There is a system team optimizing everything inside the Linux. You have a network team configuring the CDN, firewalls, load balancing. And if you're a merchant, probably you're a bit kind of at the end of that chain. So what you see is if there is money coming in inside your back office. So let's say we are facing a slowdown. How can we work on that? We have 1 second of page load time. Where to start? Well, those teams usually have their own KPIs to work on their performance, so on the performance of their gears, to stay a bit on this image. And no transverse view, really, and as a brand, no view at all, pretty much, apart from the Magento back office and Google Analytics. It's hard to know exactly where to start and how to choose the best thing to optimize first. So what we did is that we decided to have a unique KPI, a unique and shared KPI. In my experience, from this, let's say 2.5 years, seeing a lot of merchants, web agencies, and hosting working on performance, it has been a huge help to have one KPI in the middle. So you can use anything for that. I will give you some quite practical examples that you can do once you have those data together. So we call that performance intelligence. You can call that performance, whatever you want. Performance intelligence because a bit like the business intelligence where you gather different KPIs from the business in a huge company to really spot better what's wrong in a transverse way. Well, for the performance, it's a bit the same. We gather metrics from different parts of that whole chain to have a view that we didn't have before. So here are 4 practical examples that can help us to do a better job. First one is, have you ever wondered what is the impact in terms of load on your architecture when you have one click on your store? When you look, and I can talk about it with my hosting experience as well, when you look at a CPU graph on an online store, you see a graph with the CPU increasing, decreasing, increasing, decreasing, because you see days. So during the days, there is more people. So there is more CPU used. Magento is running more. And then it's more calm during the night, etc., etc. But so when you see an increase in your CPU graph, can you tell, looking at that CPU graph, if it's because there is more people on the website, or is it because something went wrong? And actually, the website is like way heavier than before to run the pages. So the important thing is to be able to spot anomalies out of this moving thing. So if I take the CPU coming from the hosting world, and I take the number of page views, which is coming from Google Analytics, and I take that CPU, I divide that by the number of page views, then I get a ratio. A ratio which tells me, for one click, what is the impact in terms of CPU. It's statistics. You need to take it with at least like a day of data, because if you take 2 clicks, maybe you will have one search on the search engine of the web store and one homepage. It's not going to be the same way because 2 different things. But statistically, if you take the whole day, if you have twice the number of page views, you're supposed to have twice the load. And if you see a difference, an anomaly, it's a key info because it means that something has been making the gears less efficient. There is probably a part, a new thing in production that have been slowing down things, and it's getting heavier. The worst impact of that is that if you don't see it, and if you don't fix it, it means that once you will have your big marketing operation the first day of the sales or Black Friday, it means that you will need way more servers than before. So it gives you a view day to day on your store's capacity. Second example, how we can correlate some anomalies in production with what's happening inside Magento. Magento is doing many things in the background. And these kind of infos are really interesting to be able to work better on performance. In that example, what I see here is I tested a simple funnel. So I'm making sure that my funnel is working well on my store. So I'm making fake visitors going to the home page, to a category page, to a product page, and then to the cart. And I see that it was like really stable, but at some point, I see a spike. So there was something wrong. So what happened? If I'm showing a bit like the black box of a plane, everything that happened inside Magento at the same time. So I'm drawing that on the same graph. And what I see is that at the very same minute, I had this. So from an external point of view, I've noticed that it was slower than before. And from what I took from infos internally from Magento, I see that at the same minute, there was a flush of the cache. So I'm not going to waste more time with that example because we know for sure that it was there was an impact. Somebody has been doing something in the back office, it triggered a flush of the cache, and then it has a quick impact, but bad impact on the performance. But I explained it at least. And also, a lot of people don't realize that what they are doing inside the back office might have some impact on the performance. So it helps to really spot things and also to learn together, not to to do too much things during the day, because a spike like this is quick, but if you use too much the back office, and if it kills your page load time, it's going to it's not going to help your conversion rate, so it's going to change. The end of the day in terms of turnover. Another example on how correlating things is really interesting is hardware events. So in that example, let's say you have a server which is having one of the nightmares of in the world of hosting is that when you have disk IOs. So disk IOs is when the disk are so busy writing. So for example, there is a background batch running, and it's writing on disk really quickly. Well, in the meantime, while the disks are so busy, Magento is going to have the worst worst time, because the server itself is not going to give him the time to run, actually. So it's going to slow him down. If we look at that from two views, so I take the CPU on one hand with my disk IOs, and I take what's the behavior of the web store in terms of how the pages react. I see that at the very same minute it starts, and at the very same minute it stops. So it's completely linked to my disk IOs. So of course you need to pay attention to that. Third example, how can you check your cache system efficiency? So cache is, of course, very important, but I'm going to to say it again today with you, because it's always good to hear it. Use as much cache as possible. So first thing is to use all these cache. And if you don't know them, if you're a merchant, if you want to make sure that you have all this, I suggest you write that down. They are all very important. So block cache, something that you can configure with your web agency. Full page cache as well if you are using Magento Enterprise. The opcode cache is installed by your hosting partner usually. It's going to make PHP work faster. So it's simple as that. It's really talking about quick wins. That's a good thing you can do, because you're going to gain some page load time just installing that. And Varnish, probably you heard a lot about Varnish, even if you don't have it. It's a very efficient cache system. It doesn't mean that you don't need the others. The others are really important as well. You need to use all of that. Varnish is a bit in between the hosting world and the world of the development, because it needs to be configured specifically for your store. So you need, it's kind of a project to install it, but very efficient. Once you have all this, then what will be important is to control all the time that your cache is always efficient, that all these different layers of cache are efficient. And that's when performance intelligence is going to help you with that, to really see through and see what's happening. So back to our gears. What we are going to do this time is that we are going to look at what Magento is doing. So from an external point of view, we are going to act as visitors coming to the web store. And we are going to look every time we check a page, if Magento has been running, and if he has been running what Magento has been doing. So what I see here is that it was okay until kind of 5 p.m. on the graph. So my page load time was pretty fast. And at some point, it became way slower and in a stable way. So if you see that on a graph of page load time, usually you have a cache problem. But let's make sure. So we're going to look into one of these steps. And what we see is that on the left-hand side, you see a gray section. The gray section means that there was no Magento time. So basically, Magento has not even been running, which is a very good thing. We want Magento to run as less as possible. Because let's face it, every time it runs, it takes a lot of CPU, it makes SQL requests and all. So we want to avoid that as maximum as possible. And at some point, something happened, and then Magento was running all the time for all the pages, and that's what kills the performance. So if we look even like inside Magento, we can see that each step of code of execution has been executed. So it's not like a one piece of Magento, it's like everything, the blocks and all of that page. And last but not least is to better optimize your store. One optimization after another is where to start. A Magento store is huge. There is a huge number of lines of code. So what should I optimize first? Because I can spend my life just on one store optimizing. I will just never finish. So I need to be very pragmatic. I need to find the biggest quick wins, the biggest bottleneck that's going to help me save the most page load time. And then I will go to the next one. So let's do this search. So for that, this time I'm going to save metrics from in a very transverse way to really spot exactly what is executed and when, if the time for a page is spent on the server side, or is it spent inside the application? If it's inside the application, where? So here's how it works. We still have a graph here where we have a category page, which is taking 2.8 seconds. So don't laugh, because it's quite common. We saw that a lot on many stores. We're going to find that bottleneck because this category page has definitely a problem. So where is that 2.8 seconds spent? We see that it's in the backend side. So it's somewhere on the server, not on the network. And it's in this blue section, which is Magento. Inside Magento, we see that it's inside one layer of execution, which is the layout rendering time. And inside that, the biggest time is spent inside one block. And this block represents 2.4 seconds. So we had one page of which was totalizing 2.8 seconds. So it sounds like a huge headache to fix that. But actually, if we drill down and we find where is the most time spent, we see that actually there is one little feature inside Magento, which is taking 85% of this page. So if I'm smart and I'm able to optimize it, to put that data in cache, typically, I'm going to save 80%, 85% of the total and of the page. So with just one optimization, I'm back in not in the target, but in the average of Magento, which is not quite bad. So what you see here is that what was done to optimize it, and one thing after another, you see that it's stable and it's quite fast. I will finish with that, telling you that, as you can see, I'm a bit dedicated to make Magento faster and as much as possible on many stores as possible and everywhere in the world. That's Quanta's mission, actually. And we have seen quite a lot of good success while doing this. Those optimizations have been done by many customers, taking one problem after another, and then the next one, and the next one. And so if you want, if you work on performance as well in your organization, and you want to join us in that Let's Speed Magento effort, I would be really happy to have a chat with you after this talk. Grazie mille.
Thank you. Thank you, Guillaume. Se ci sono delle domande? No. No questions.
If you have any questions. No?
Yes.
One question. We still have time? Okay.
Thank you for your speech.
Thank you.
Do you have one or two golden hints that you can give us? Like usually searching that function, or and maybe 90% of the time there's the problem.
Yes, as I was saying a bit in the beginning of the conference, we see patterns on many stores. The example I showed you, where we find that most of the time was spent in the layout rendering time, this is very common. Let's say that it's not like a very real statistics, but it's just to my feeling. But I would say that 80% of the time, when there is an issue inside Magento, a bottleneck inside Magento is going to be on that part. Inside that layout rendering time, so if you're not a Magento developer, this is where you find all the blocks. So it's pieces of code that are going to generate pieces of HTML code. So in the end, all these blocks, and there can be, it's still quite a big area, because there can be, most of the time there is more than 100 of blocks. It can be things that you install from the Magento Connect, or things that have been developed specifically for your store. And yeah, so typically in this area, and in rare occasions, I see that it's spread on many different areas. Most of the times, it's 2-3 things, and then you have almost one of the best Magentos. So it's quite cool, actually. It's quite to focus on those points. It goes quite fast.
Thank you. And in the backend side, like a really slow catalog list.
It's going to depend a lot on your configurations and the type of product. Among our customers, they have a lot of different configurations. Some of them are very, very complicated products. It's really impressive. This part can be a bit harder to make cash around that subject, because it really depends on how live you need your price to be. But if you can have some kind of cache, even if it's refreshed quite often, it's always better than no cache at all. So, but if you're curious about different situations like this, we can have a chat after. I'd be happy to go deeper into that with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Another over here.
Thank you. Very interesting presentation.
Thank you.
I'm wondering, what kind of tools do you use to collect these numbers for the graphics? Whether it's your own tools or you integrate some already available solutions?
It's a combination of different things, actually. We have 3 main probes. One is an external probe, so faking visitors, going through each step of the funnel, so maybe adding to cart, going to the checkout, just making sure that this works all the time. That's a bit homemade, and that's from an external, our own probes in our own data center. Internally, we built a Magento profiler, so that's inserted inside the code. to make sure that every time we connect that we can save exactly how the page was rendered. And last but not least is we connect to Zabbix to take a lot of interesting metrics from the whole hosting world. So that can be metrics on Redis, on MySQL, the CPU, disk IOs, everything that is related to the hosting. And we take all that data, and then we have like one single format to be able to do calculations based on one with the other and all. And yeah, and one last also is Google Analytics. So we link to Google Analytics, and we take some data which are quite relevant for performance reasons. One more thing.
One more, if you don't mind. Actually, so all these tools are running on your customer stores in production, or you just have some kind of Magento under test that is all the time in the position when you run this testing from all the sites?
So is it working only in development or production? It's a good question. It was in the roots of the solution when we designed it. It's meant to be used on production. Probably 85% of the stores that we monitor are production ones. Some customers are going to test also their staging environment, but usually they will then test both. But the most important thing is the production environment, because this is where the buyers are buying, where we want to control that funnel works. And also, let's face it, probably you will agree with me with all your different experiences on the subject, there is always some bottlenecks that are going to happen only in production, and they are never going to happen on your staging environment. You can have the best copy ever with that data from last night and all. Production is production. It's linked to the system of information. There is people on the back office during the day. There are buyers. It's connected to everything, and it happens often only there. So we want to save. We want to be able to exactly spot what happened like half an hour ago on production every time, and yeah. So to answer the question, it was quite challenging to be able to profile just the right things, so not to have any additional way on the store. But now that it's done, it's really cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
you
Guillaume.
all.